Howdy again everyone, it's a little while since I've tested a new 50mm f1.4 lens, at least I think so. Sometimes they all kind of blur into one for me in the test lab here, but nevertheless, I'm still pleased to be checking out Viltrox's new autofocus 50mm f1.4 Pro lens for full-frame mirrorless cameras. It'll be available on Sony E-mount to start with, and it will cost $549 US, 619 euro, or £525 here in the UK, which could be a reasonable price for a modern 50mm f1.4. I'd like to thank Viltrox for sending me one of these lenses for testing, although as usual, this is a totally independent review. They've had no input into the video at all. 50mm f1.4 lenses are an absolute favourite option for many photographers out there. First of all, everyone loves 50mm. It offers you a lovely emphasis on your subject and out of focus backgrounds, while still being wide enough to offer you at least a little bit of the bigger picture around you. And the f1.4 models are popular because they let in loads of light and offer you considerably more out of focus backgrounds than the cheaper f1.8 options out there. Remember, an f1.4 lens is 66% brighter, and of course the f1.4 models are far cheaper than the very expensive f1.2 options you can get, and tend to be much smaller and lighter to handle as well. Having said that, this lens itself is pretty big actually for a 50mm optic, as you can see. Hardly a surprise though, considering its complex optical design, which includes 15 glass elements. Its build quality looks and feels exceptional. The lens's body is made of metal with a lovely smooth finish to it. It's based on a metal lens mount with weather sealing around the edge for extra protection. There's also a USB-C port embedded in the mount for future firmware updates. All that metal makes the lens rather heavy though. It weighs 800 grams, or just under 2 pounds. As you upturn the lens, you can hear and feel glass elements gently bumping around inside, something which I don't really like, but in all fairness it's becoming normal these days. At the rear we find a nice aperture control ring which clicks at every third of an f-stop. It can also be set to turn smoothly, which can be useful for video makers, and I'm really pleased to note that the click to get it in and out of A, or camera controlled mode, is really heavy, which will help to prevent you accidentally setting it to f16. Then we get an auto manual focus switch and a customizable focus hold button. And then comes a metallic manual focus ring, which turns lovely and smoothly, and it works averagely responsively with the focus motor. You can also see here that the lens has a nice little ace up its sleeve, almost no focus breathing. That'll be a nice advantage for video makers. The lens's autofocus motor works silently and accurately. In single shot autofocus mode it's quick enough, switch over to continuous autofocus mode and it works just a little smoother and more confidently. So I've seen faster, but it's still an okay performance there. The lens has a 77mm filter thread size and it does not feature image stabilization. It comes with a fairly deep plastic hood. Overall, the lens's build quality is very lovely here. Even though it's on the big and heavy side, everything's working perfectly and it looks and feels pretty gorgeous. So let's take a look at its image quality. I'll start by testing it on a full frame camera, my extremely challenging 61MP Sony a7CR. In-camera corrections are turned on for this test. If you want images zoomed into the 42MP ratio of my older reviews for comparison purposes by the way, then you can find a link to a special unlisted video in the description below. Okay, at f1.4 we're seeing very good sharpness and contrast here. A quite decent amount of detail is certainly being captured. At f2 though, image quality now looks excellent. Let's open back up to f1.4 and look over into the image corners. Alright, contrast is holding up here, but resolution is a little softer in places, as you can see. Still, for a reasonably priced lens at f1.4 on a 61MP camera, this is a respectable showing. Stop down to f2 for more brightness, but not really any more sharpness. At f2.8, we're getting a rather punchy image now, though, and at f4, image quality is virtually perfect from corner to corner. It's only if you stop down to f11 or f16 that softness begins to re-emerge due to diffraction. Overall, it's possible to get sharper 50mm f1.4 lenses than this, but not by much. For the price you're paying, this is a nice performance. For anyone interested, let's switch over to the camera's 26 megapixel aps-c mode to see the kind of images you'll get if shooting on a crop sensor camera. At f1.4 in the middle of the image, sharpness is just good. Again though, stop down to f2 for excellent image quality to emerge. Let's open back up to f1.4 and look in the image corners then. At f1.4, picture quality is slightly hazy as it is at f2 also. f2.8 is better and f4 looks very sharp now. Alright, so on aps-c the lens's image quality is just okay. I think this is much better suited as a lens for full frame shooters. Alright, let's turn off in-camera corrections and take a look at distortion and vignetting. We see only some mild barrel distortion here, but at f1.4 the corners are rather dark. At f2 and f2.8 though, those corners brighten up significantly, an averagely good performance here. This lens's minimum focus distance is 45 cm, just average for a 50mm optic. At f1.4 there are huge problems though with contrast unfortunately, as you can see quite plainly. At f2 there's only a small improvement. At f2.8 contrast is greatly improved, although a little colour fringing is still evident. It's only really at f4 that we get some really great sharpness here, so that's a bit of a weakness for the tested lens. Let's take a look at how it works against bright lights. As you can see, the lens suffers from an average amount of flaring here, with a bit of an extra glare when bright lights are right in the image frame. While we're working in the dark, let's take a look for coma and sun stars. Any kind of coma smearing is low on this lens, even at f1.4. It's reduced at f2 and at f2.8 it's gone. Let's reposition the camera and take a look for sun stars. The lens's aperture mechanism has 11 iris blades to it, leading to many pointed sun stars which begin to emerge at f5.6. At f8, f11 and f16 they gradually become huge. A massive question for anyone thinking of getting this lens will be, what does its bokeh look like? All these sample pictures should give you a good idea. To my mind it's pretty gorgeous. Out of focus backgrounds are really soft, specular highlights don't have any weird outlining or internal patterning to them. Nice, although they do have the usual cat's eye shape to them in the image corners. And finally, related to bokeh, let's take a look for longitudinal chromatic aberration. It's definitely there at f1.4, really strong actually. It's still there at f2 and f2.8, it's greatly reduced at f4, and at f5.6 it's finally gone. Overall, the Viltrox 50mm f1.4 is a very nice optic to work with, which offers very decent results for the money you're paying, especially if you're shooting on full frame, although it's certainly pretty big and heavy. It may not be up to quite the same standard as the best 50mm lenses out there, but it comes surprisingly close, making it excellent value, so it certainly comes recommended. Thanks for watching everyone, blah 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 Patreon, blah 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 channel memberships, blah blah blah, links in the description below, and a massive thank you to everyone who supports this channel behind the scenes so I can keep these sponsorship free reviews coming. Ciao and God bless everyone.